Code pen. Yay. Just poke around a little bit. The beginning of this here stream. See if anybody shows up before we look at if a little bit, which I have not looked at all. Oh, that's fun. What is going on here? Huh. Well, that looks cool. I hadn't seen that pen yet. Hello. Somebody popped in. I was just poking around pens before we got into the meat of this stream, which is this at function. Is my sound coming through okay? It seems like it is. I have not, I mean, it's brand spanking new, but still, as somebody who looks at this stuff quite a bit, I have not written my own at function rule in CSS at all, even just to play. I also note that this is shipped in Chrome 139, but as Una has pointed out, it has gone through the working group draft process. So it's, Chrome we went through the process, Chrome rolled it out. So I happened to be here in Canary because it needed to be Chrome 139 and Canary's at like 142. So we should be good there. I was looking at switching back to Arc because it's sold to Atlassian or something, which I wasn't exactly clapped about in the community, but the CEO is like, I like Arc, so we bought Arc, kinda, and I didn't really say a word about Dia, so I'm like, well, dude, if dude bought Arc, maybe that'll be motivation for the team to really do a good job with Arc. But I noticed in Arc, the version of Chrome right now is 138, so that was not enough. We need to be up to 139. So I think stable Chrome is 140. So that would work too. But my guts were like, I'll just use Canary and that should work fine too. So Una was the most all over this that I saw. So we thought we'd start with her blog post because why not, right? While custom properties let you store a dynamic value with var, a custom function can run logic. Okay, so it's like a variable with logic. That's a cool way to think about it. And it is also just a value. I think that's kind of important to realize is that function returns a value, one value, not like a block of stuff, like a mixed in, but just like a value. So width equals a custom function, it'll return something or whatever. Writing custom functions makes code much neater, especially building with design systems. So I'm really excited to see the feature land. Let's look at some real world examples. That's nice. I mean, we could look at the spec too, but I think just looking at a blog post is the fun way to do it. Returns the negative of a value. So here's the syntax. At function means you're creating a new function that didn't exist before. You're using a custom ident here, so it has to be dash dash. Ooh, I did not know that. I do kind of like that though. And then you can pass in parameters to it. The parameters are also custom idents. They look like variables. And then result is new too. So this is new, but I've never seen that before. Result then uses calc and it multiplies -1 by, and then you have to use the var keyword when you're accessing the parameter. I don't know if that's surprising or not. So it just takes whatever you get in and multiplies it by -1. That makes me think about types right away. Like what if I passed in a string here like foo? What's gonna be the result? No idea. Then you can use negate in a declaration like so. So I have gap of 1m, but if I needed a gap of -1m, I can call my custom function and that should return -1m. That's cool. That makes me want to try it already. Let's probably not go too long without trying it. So as I always do, kind of the secret purpose of this. I don't know if I like the dark mode there. Dark mode. I want to try it right now to sanity check and make sure this browser is going to work. So let's take Yuna's function, which is kind of cool. And then we'll give ourselves like a card element with like a, this is one thing that comes up for me sometimes is, let's say the card has a padding on it of 1 rem, border 1 pix solid black. So if there's some text in there, it'll be pushed away from the outside of the card, right? But then let's say we had a header in there as title of card here. That's fine. But let's say we wanted the background of the header to go edge to edge. So we'd go like header has a background of black and a color of white and has some padding of its own around it. It's going to be like inside the card rather than hugging the edges of the card. You know, that's what I thought of looking at her example right away. Margin, block, end. So one of the ways that you can do this is have margin of like -1 rem and it will suck it back to the outsides. But instead of having that be a magic number, perhaps we could call this function then. So how do you do it? Do you just go negate and then you pass it in? But the card, why don't we set this up as padding as 1 rem? Then we use the variable padding and we also pass in. Do you have to use variable here? Padding. It seems like you should need to. I should have to use var there, but I wonder if it will work without it. It doesn't. So what if I pass it in like that? Will it do it? Oh, it did it. Fun. So if we decided there needs to be more padding, 2 rem, this will all just fall together and work. Sort of. I guess I need to put that same amount here. Right. That's neat. That's really neat. Good job. Hi, Emmett, by the way. Cool. Example of using @ function in CSS. Sweet. Definitely not hating that, and that's the first example. Cool. We could put a custom embed right there. A while ago, I wrote a way to use color mix function was to create opacity variants for CSS colors based on a tweet by Adam Wathan asking if there was a more efficient way to do this. Since then, we've got the relative color syntax in all browsers, which is the most efficient way. I love the relative, this from syntax is so cool. So how is Yuna using it? She makes a custom opacity function that takes a color and an opacity and then just returns it. Oh yeah, okay. So this is fine, but it's a little mouthy. Whereas that just reads nice, I think is Yuna's point here. And I tend to agree. So let's steal that function as well. We'll put them at the top. Neat. And then the header, instead of being background black, we could say like -- opacity. And then we can just send in a color like Rebecca purple 0.5 or something, and it should just be light purple. Oh, rawr. That's great. Neat. I was like, is there a better name? But maybe there isn't, because the fact when you call it, you're just passing the color. It reads pretty cleanly as a function. So could we do like OKLCH and then make this LCH and it will also work the same? Yeah, cool. Wow. Neat. So what we bought so far is I guess we didn't have to do the multiplication here in the margin, which feels a little nice, I guess, because if you needed it more times, you'd have to keep doing it over and over. And then you're like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's dry, but it also just, I don't know. Sometimes it feels nice not to do the math right there when you're declaring stuff, that you move functional stuff away, I guess. And then that certainly reads a lot cleaner than that does. Although, I don't know. Does it though? These are like nice a little bit, but maybe they'll get a little bit more mind-blowing. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, so here's some examples. Cool. What's the at function in here? Oh, I'm not seeing it. Oh, there it is. That's the opacity one we just looked at. And I guess you can declare other variables using the function. I guess I would expect that you'd be able to do that. So that's good. You can do it in any color space. Right on. We just changed color spaces. So right there with you. Another great use of CSS functions is to make the very popular clamp method for font sizing a bit more clear and legible. So that clear and legible thing is what we've grasped onto so far as well, which is just, I don't know, it just makes the declarative block later read a little nicer. So I wrote a function here to create a fluid typography that scales with the viewport width. Okay. So fluid type takes a minimum, maximum, and a type. The type is interesting. I wonder how that will come in. Just a string, I guess. And, oh, okay, so the scaling changes depending on if you send in header or copy. It looks like kind of an excuse to use the if function, which is okay. But then you end up, scalar ends up either being 4 viewport widths or half a viewport width. Then the result, which is what gets returned, is a clamping of, it's just the minimum and the maximum, and then the middle is the scalar and the font size. Yeah, that's cool. So you say font size, fluid type, and then you just don't have to look at the clamp. Yeah, sure. So it does read a little nicer, especially that. Like as soon as you have that in there now, that would look gross having to repeat it multiple times. It already, to me, doesn't look amazing, having to declare these variables right before you're using them and stuff. You wouldn't have to, but it does read kind of nicely. I don't know. Sometimes too many custom idents and stuff like makes my head spin in CSS. This is already sort of getting there, but I take the point, I guess. Looks kind of nice. I am curious about this, though. Does that expose itself now after you've called it? Like, in P, can I use scalar now that I've called this? Or is scalar like private to this function? So let's try it ourselves first and just see what we get. So I want to write a function that's like declare stuff. And it'll be like name Chris. So then if I have something else, a main element, let's say, and well, I guess this isn't really relevant with functions because they're only values. They're not like a mix-in where name is like possible to expose. So if I went like after content is declare stuff, that should work as long as there is a main element. Main. It's probably going to say that. Ooh, maybe not. Why wouldn't it? Oh, because there's no result, right? So I'd have to go result is var name. Cool. Like, and then this is also strange. Like result, I think I remember talking about it. I can't remember with who or whatever, but that if there's no like execution order of these functions, I think if I went like that, it would just be fine. Right. That seems weird because you're like, dude, you're returning this result before you've even declared it. And I know in JavaScript there's like hoisting and whatnot, but the CSS just doesn't roll like that. But it just kind of doesn't matter. And in fact, I could write margin 200 pixels in here or something. It's just irrelevant. It just is a meaningless statement. It will never apply to anything ever. It only matters what I'm doing here with result. So the work that I'm doing is probably going to all be in the like resolution of custom properties within it. Okay, interesting. I guess let's keep going with this. Conditionally rounded border. Oh yeah, lovely. I remember this trick. We used this. Oh yeah, is this Adam's trick? We used this on a site, even on this stream at one point. But it's kind of neat. Yeah, like when it touches, when a container is the exact size of an element is the size of its container, no more border radius. Kind of a clever idea. That had to do with comparing container units and viewport units, I think, or maybe just container units and container units. So let's make it a function. Conditionally apply a radius if your default 4 pixels from the edge of your screen. Okay. So Una has written a function called conditional radius. It takes a radius and it takes how far away from the edge is 4 pixels, which could be 0, I suppose. And the result is 0 is the minimum, and then it takes 100 of the viewport widths. That's the point where maybe having that be CQI instead of VW would be interesting, because it's like, why not? Why does it have to be the viewport? CQI would be the viewport, or it would be the next container up, which would be kind of cool. Var edge dist minus 100% times 1E5. Isn't that 10,000 or 100,000 maybe? I don't know. And then the radius that gets passed in. Wow, that's interesting. It seems really simple. So let's look at the pen. Merp. Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. That is very simple, isn't it? Now that one I like even more, because this, I don't know, for some reason this is like the perfect level of what this 10,000 thing is freaking me out a little bit though. Like, why is that necessary? I'm not sure I can wrap my mind around that right this minute. It seems like it wouldn't be, but I don't want to, I'm not really in the mood to dig into that. But conditional radius 1 rem is really nice to read, because I don't think I would want to look at that over and over and over again. It's just weird enough that I like kind of want to like whisk it away. Like it's too abstract. I don't care to look at it. Oh, cool. That's a really simple one. Okay, one more we'll look at. You can also use custom functions with media queries to return different results based on specific conditions. Oh, I see. So the result that it returns, you could have multiple result statements. Ooh, I kind of didn't see that coming. This function creates a responsive sidebar layout, so you just have to call it once with layout sidebar. On smaller screens, it will take up the full width, but on larger screens, it creates a sidebar of the specified width and a main content area that takes up the remaining space. So what are you doing? Is it, okay, the result is 1FR or the sidebar width that you pass in auto. So I see, you're using it as grid template columns. It's like a way of declaring a dynamic set of grid template columns. Wow. So it's just kind of like instead of burying the media query down here in dot layout, it's like a moving of the logic to a new place. It's so interesting. Let's do something else just because we have a working example of that. Why don't we repeat our card a couple of times? inside of a dot grid, I guess. So if we grab all the cards and we dot grid around it, cool. Then we say dot grid, let's give ourselves some room here, is a display grid. Nothing's going to happen, right? Gap 1 rem to make sure they're pushed apart. A sanity check that it is a grid. Great. So we could say grid template columns is like 1FR, 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 something that's going to set them all right next to each other, super narrow. Neat. So if we could write just a baby step this, we could write function, you know, column logic or something. And it doesn't take any parameters right now, but all it's going to do is return the value that we set up. So we could say dash dash column logic. Now, I've already screwed this up, right? It has to be a custom ident even in the declaration of the function, right? I've already screwed this up. Function dash dash column logic. And when I call it, oh, do you have to call it with parens even if you're not passing anything, right? How do you call these other ones? Dash dash negate. Grid template columns, column logic. Why wouldn't that do it? Whoa. I don't know. That looks right to me. Is it the fact that the add function is declared lower down in the CSS? It doesn't like it? Dot grid is not even showing up here. Oh, is it this missing semicolon? Maybe? No. Dot grid no longer has any styles. What is happening to dot grid here? It's getting like lost. Is it in the build output? Yes. Huh. So maybe these at functions need to be declared at the top of the file and you put them lower. It doesn't like that. Is that possible? No. This function looks a lot like these other functions, doesn't it? Dash dash column logic. Grid template columns, dash dash column logic, just like all the rest of these. And yet, it's not doing it. They do have 1 rem of space between them, though, so grid must be. Like, am I confused? I'm on grid here. I can, oh man, this is freaking out. I can see the 1 rem of gap between all of it. Oh, this DevTools is like freaking out. This is CodePen stuff. Look at this preview is like lost its mind. Oh, this is not even Arc. It's just Canary. Am I regretting being in Canary? Remember at the beginning of this stream, I was like, man, we should have just used Stable maybe. Sometimes I regret using Canary because it feels very busted sometimes. But like in a way that's like, isn't it supposed to be busted? I am taking a peek. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to switch the stream to Chrome Stable, but that means I need to bring some tabs with us, like Yuna's blog post. And then I need to size it so it's not weird. Yeah, how'd we do? Pretty okay? Good. This is not weird. We can see dot grid and dot grid as display grid, but the column logic here is returning nothing. Oh, I said return. Chat, get me. It's not, it feels like it should be return because it's a function like JavaScript, but it's result. These are going to go, okay. Great. But now I can put the logic in this function. So I could say at media, the width of, I don't know, the viewport, I guess, because it's a media query is less than, say, 500 pixels, 500 pixels. Then the result is, I don't know, just 1 column. So look at that. Cool, right? it just means that we, like down here, I probably would have written it in the past as grid template columns 1FR, 1FR, 1FR. And then basically had no choice but to put the media query here. Less than 500 pixels, grid template columns 1FR. It's like we've been writing CSS like that forever. It's a little nicer now with nesting. CSS nesting makes us able to put those declarations right next to each other, and that's nice. But there's a niceness here too of just punting on that. That I can just do it in a function elsewhere. I don't know enough computer science fanciness to talk about like why that matters, but I don't know. It's neat. It's also neat that it can be shared in a way that would have been hard to do otherwise. Another thing that you could do would have been declaring, like we have some HTML element and we put, grid calls here is 1FR, 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 and put the logic there. Media width is less than 500 pixels, and then kind of redeclared grid calls there. That's like another way to do it. Wouldn't that also work? Grid calls. No. When it's less than 500 pixels, grid calls, did I spell it correctly? Should be redefined as 1FR. Why doesn't that work? Or it's only 1FR. It never becomes this. Why? Oh, because I'm calling it weird like a function. I need to call it with var. That's a tricky thing to get used to, maybe. So that should be working. So 3 different ways to do it. So I'll comment that out as well. In the way we're doing it now is grid template columns, and we're going to call grid logic like a function instead. Huh. But how did I break it now? Did I not call it grid logic? Column logic, I called it. And I do want to put it lower in the CSS to see because the only reason we changed that is because we were trying to debug stuff. Hi, Bolly. Thanks for hanging out. Sounds nice to have a consistent breakpoint, to have a function breakpoint where you're passing in parameters with the result of it being based on the media query. Yes. I kind of see what you mean there, especially because the breakpoint, like you can do more with the logic than you would be able to do in this situation. Like that's neat, but you're not passing any parameters there. You have like less logical capability, whereas here we could go dash breakpoint, I guess, or min and max, but we could just say breakpoint for now to keep it more simple. And then this, you could just pass in the 500 pixels, and this becomes var dash breakpoint. That should still work, right? No, we've broken it. Why? Breakpoint, 500 pixels. I thought that was for sure going to work. The width is less than the 500 pixels here. It should break into one column. Why didn't it do that? I thought that was the whole point of this bad boy. Oh, right. It's because, you're right. It's because media queries just can't do that. Dumb. It's because there's that @custom-media thing. Oh, that's too bad. That really kind of limits the coolness here. But theoretically, it would be nice to do. Maybe we should just make note of that. Like breakpoint isn't cool. And we could say, in the future, it would be nice to accept a dash breakpoint variable. It's not a variable when it comes in the parentheses. What do you call it? Argument? and use here, but variables don't work in @media queries. Yeah, and there's some good reason for that too, which I can't remember at the moment. So now it's back to working though. That's cool. Okay. So that would be a neat little mini blog post right there, is like, we used to do it like this, and then you could do it like this now that we have variables, but the function way is even more interesting. That's wild. It does affect how you like teach and learn CSS a little bit. Like there's three right there was three like very, very similar looking ways to do something. So what do you teach? Do you just teach them all? Is one of them better than the other? In that case, it would be really tricky to teach, because you're like, which one's better, teacher? I'd be like, hell if I know, probably the old school one, because it will definitely work everywhere. But if in a world where the browser support is identical, then it becomes more complicated. Probably not the best thing thinking in this small. I think these things tends to become more clear which one is more useful when it's doing more. I guess that was some of my early mental pushback on function. It was like, oh, it's just one value. How useful can this be? Like there's so little you can do with it. It's not nearly as kind of all powerful as a mixin is, but still pretty cool as we're learning. This multiple result thing is very interesting to me. Like under what other circumstances could we return different results, and which win, Like if I say @supports, I don't know, color red, like all browsers will, and then say the result is actually 2 fractional units, what are we going to get? Yeah, that one's going to win. And is that now source order? Because both of these media queries are true. The second one wins? Probably. That's going to go down to 1. Yeah, okay. So that's interesting. We'll just make a note of that. Source order matters still. And is there any like way around that? Probably not. You just use source order, It's just source order seems so fragile to me sometimes that like, I don't know. It seems like there should be a better way or something, but I can't articulate it. Okay, what else is in Yuna's post here? Final words are usually pretty interesting to read. Bonus, light dark theming function. Oh, I think this comes from, do I have my canary still open? I'm going to grab a link from it still. Not still, but grab a link from it. From a Bramus post where he's combining function and if, which we already saw a little bit. So this post is about an upcoming feature, the quest for light dark that works with any value. So an function that takes a light value and a dark value, returns the light value, or prefers color scheme. That seems, isn't that what the built-in light dark function is? Unlike it, custom function is not limited to color values. Oh yeah, that's cool. It works with any value. So there's already an advantage to redeclaring it. But unlike light dark, it cannot respond to the local color scheme value and only respond to the media preference. Oh, I see. The light dark function in CSS, you can set color scheme on like a sub part of the DOM tree, whereas this won't work with that. Oh my God. Again, it's one of those things I think about teaching CSS. Not that I do it professionally necessarily, but like, man, that is a mind bender to teach, like which one should I use? Hell if I know. All right. A custom light dark using container queries. Okay. How are container queries relevant here? So I guess we should read first. Since my previous post, the prototype in Chrome got expanded. Something. Set a preferred color scheme on an element using a named -- scheme rework. Okay. Maybe I don't care. Light dark takes the 2 values. And then, I see. Style queries. Not just container queries like the ones where you're measuring the width, but the ones where you're evaluating a custom property that we all want to work on more than custom properties, but for now, that's that. So that's going to get the kind of DOM scoping ability that the built-in light dark function has. Yeah, cool. Because you just set some value. Scheme is just some made up word. It could be anything. Cool. And then he goes as far to scope it to let's smash every fancy CSS feature in the world. I guess this is the point, that line right there, you can't do that with the built-in light dark function because it only works with colors. But now this custom one would work with values that are not necessarily colors. That's pretty cool. Is that what Una had to say as well? Have you ever wanted to use light dark? Bramis has covered it. Yeah, so they're just referencing each other because they, whatever, work right down the hall from each other at Google headquarters. I'm sure they work from home. I have no idea where they actually work. So if the variable, then get the dark value else. That's nice to look at too. Is that different than how Bramis wrote it? He wrote it differently, I thought. Yeah, he wrote the full @ container query and then just had 2 results, whereas Una only has 1 result function with an if function. Maybe Bramis got there in the end. Yeah, a custom function using an inline if. Yeah, that is so futuristic to me. I don't know how, if I just got old at some point or whatever, but looking at that, I'm not sure my like CSS brain of 5 years ago could deal with that. It's just so strange to me. I'd be like, what's happening there? What's happening there? What's happening there? What's happening there? It's like every bit of it parses weird to my brain. I get it. I just think it's incredible. Okay. And the scope crap. I'm not even ready to deal with the scope thing yet. I get scope. I did a whole talk on it at this conference I was at with them, but a little too much for my brain right this minute, I think. Okay, so we did okay. Our little pen is neat. It has a number of custom functions. Negate was useful for cards. Opacity was useful so we don't have to see the whole relative color syntax. Declaring stuff turned out not to be that interesting because this wouldn't be exposed in the same way it would be in a mix-in or theoretically exposed. And what was the coolest one? Probably the coolest one was custom logic because of the multiple results with a baked-in media query. But we wanted it to accept an argument, but it can't, or it can happily accept the argument. You just can't quite do what we want to with the argument. Interesting. I suppose you can't use variables in container queries either, right? I'm sure it's the same problem. Anyway, this is useful. I don't know. Maybe I'll clean it up and make it more findable or something. In truth, I'm trying to get a post done of like, the new CSS of 2025 thing, but I want to have it be really actually useful so you can have these very clear examples of things to grab. So that'll take me a little while to get together, but that's what I do sometimes, and I find it fun. All right, I gotta go pick up the kid from ballet today. Thanks for hanging out.